Welcome, all of you amazing, beautiful, wonderful souls, to an extra special episode of TheSeireitei, brought to you today by Mizuiro's postcards from Hawaii. Remember, everyone, be kind to others, and they will be kind to you. So, this episode is special for a couple of different reasons. First off, this is the spoiler episode, our long-awaited spoiler episode, where we can finally take a deep dive into those moments that we felt we could only allude to within our regular episodes, because, as all of you know, we've been trying to keep these episodes as spoiler-free as possible so that folks who are just watching the anime for the first time can still listen, can still enjoy, just like longtime fans. So, hooray! Exciting times. And then second, something else incredibly exciting, as all of you know, the Discord server from which this podcast arose is a community server where we put a lot of emphasis on fandom and joining together because of our communal love of Bleach. And so in that spirit, we are bringing in a couple voices from the community today. One of them you know very well. I'm joined today by Shiki.
Hello.
And secondly, not that you're not exciting, Shiki, but the super duper exciting part is the fact that we've got a new voice on the podcast today. So this is Naomi, everybody.
Hey guys. Yeah.
And yeah, if you take a second to just introduce yourself, say what's up. We'll keep it sort of quick because Naomi's going to be on some future episodes of the podcast as well. So we'll spend some more time with her very shortly. But just a quick little rundown for this one.
Yeah. So hey guys, I'm Naomi. You usually engaging with the Bleach community in the Discord server, but you can find me writing fanfiction as well under Chaotic Dreamer. That's who I am.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So those are the exciting things kind of covered. I do want to just make it clear what we mean when we say that this is a spoiler episode before we soldier on too much further. So once again, this is your spoiler alert. Y'all, this is a spoiler episode. If you have only seen the first season of Bleach, because that's where we've got up to in our main series of episodes, then you're not going to want to listen to the rest of this episode if spoilers are something that you care about. So let's just touch base real quick. So Shiki and Naomi, have either of you read the final arc of the manga?
No.
I have.
Okay, sick. Me too. So even within our group of podcast hosts at the moment, there are a couple of us who have read the final arc, and then Shiki who hasn't. And so with that in mind, we also don't want to spoil the final arc of the manga if maybe folks are making their way through that final arc before the anime drops, or if there are folks out there who are only watching the anime and don't really care too much about reading the manga. We don't want to spoil the final arc for you guys because that would be disappointing for everybody. So I think how we're going to handle this is there might be a couple of times here and there, we'll see, when Naomi and I might allude to things that happen in the final arc, but we're going to do that in the same way that we've alluded to the anime spoilers that we'll be covering in this episode. We're going to maybe make some vague passing references if we feel like they're relevant. But for the most part, we are going to try and avoid that so that y'all can enjoy the final arc as it was meant to be enjoyed. So yeah,
don't worry, guys.
Final warning.
Whoever's on the outside of the spoilers for that, I'm on the outside with you, so we can just bro out together there.
That's actually a super nice thing. I'm actually very glad that there is a host who hasn't read the final arc so that so we get different perspectives. I think that's going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when the anime comes out and you're there reacting to it firsthand as well, it's just going to bring that whole kind of wholesomeness together as well.
I am so excited to hear Shiki react to the final arc.
Bye.
It's going to be epic. The arc will be epic, and Shiki's reactions are the part that I'm really looking forward to, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I hope I can
deliver.
So
there you go, everybody.
No
That's
pressure.
your final warning. This is a spoiler episode. Here on out, we're gonna have spoilers. This is your last chance to nope out before we take that dive. So hit pause or don't at your own peril. Wow, guys. Okay, where do we want to start?
There's so much to start with, though.
I mean, to sound cliche, should we just start at the beginning?
Let's do that. That's a very good idea.
Yeah. I mean, because from the first episode alone, watching it back, and there's just so much that you can see from someone with our point of view who has seen at least up until the last anime arc. There's just so much in that first episode where you'll be watching it and you're just like, oh, hang a sec. Let's start off with, for example, Ishin.
Yeah, yes. Oh my gosh, please.
Very much so.
So I was literally rereading the manga this morning before I was getting ready for work, and a quote jumped up at me of saying Ichigo was referring to Rukia as a chick in a samurai gear. Now, for those of us who know Ishin and know who Ishin was and is going to become, that's obviously going to set some alarm bells ringing for him in that
Who
sense.
was Ishin speaking to in the manga when he said that? Was he speaking to Ichigo?
Ichigo was speaking to Ishin, referring to Rukia, because Rukia was standing in his bedroom.
Oh,
I
that's
see.
right.
Ishin couldn't see Rukia, but
I
Ichigo
remember
was-
that. Oh, Ishin
Yeah.
ostensibly couldn't see Rukia. I remember this now. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
completely. Which, okay, I think. So rewatching Ishin's bits in this first season has been one of the most enjoyable things for me, and I've become like a 50 bajillion, over 9,000% Ishin stan over these past couple of months that we've been recording this podcast.
Totally.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, yo, shout out, he's such a good dad to begin with, but the fact, like, the little ways in which he has preparing his son for some interaction with the very dangerous supernatural throughout his whole entire life, but being really subtle about it, so admirable. He is a smart man.
Definitely. And even if it's just, kicking him in the face to wake him up in the morning, that's his way of, mentally and physically preparing himself for what kind of drop kicks he's going to get later on in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing about that, too, is that Ishin, like, knowing how complex Ichigo's metaphysical makeup is, Ishin probably couldn't have known exactly how Ichigo's powers were going to manifest, right? And so he did his very best and prepared him for all of the possibilities with, like, sort of what equates to basic training. And the fact that Ichigo has not made that connection yet, despite the fact that he knows what Soul Reapers are, just goes to show how well Ishin is doing keeping that particular secret. Which actually, now that we're on the topic of Ishin a little bit, something that it's been exciting to see how different pieces of imagery have manifested and have stuck out to me as I've been rewatching. So the episodes that we covered in our last regular old episode of the podcast involved Ichigo like figuring out how to not become a hollow, kind of, and emerging from the pit of despair with Kisuke and Tessai and the kids. And I noticed that he was wearing I don't think it was something to keep his sword in place. I don't know what it was, but he's got in his shihakusho, just over his shihakusho, this diagonal torn piece of white fabric. And I was like, oh, that looks like Ishin's Haori, like father, like son. It's really, and Ichigo still doesn't know. And of course, even if he did know, he wouldn't have known how his dad decided to wear his Haori or anything like that. But I think they have a really strong connection, even if it's not always super easy to see. And I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, like I didn't even notice that until you pointed it out. I was just
Right?
like, wait, oh my gosh, that is true.
It's
So,
enough that I'm
yeah.
wondering whether Kubo drew that part first and then went back and was like, okay, I know that each captain is a little bit individualistic, except for Ukitake, whose uniform is really boring. What the heck, Kubo? He has no embellishments and his hair doesn't even change when he goes into the final arc at all. It's just the same. Everyone gets a hairstyle change, and Ukitake's is just the same, which I guess, fair enough. It's beautiful and it works.
Would you even want to change it?
He had a
I mean-
ponytail in the past. That was cute.
He did. That was very cute. I've had, I don't know, like all of my frickin' fix-it AUs where I'm like, all of my post-final arc AUs where I have an ukitake in there, I'm always like, oh, what if he had an undercut? And then I'm like, that's a terrible idea. What if can you imagine? He'd be so hot. Ugh.
Oh my god. I want that. Yeah.
I know, same. And my hair is nowhere near as gorgeous as his. All this to say, I wonder if when Kubo was designing Ishin's captain's uniform, if he was like, oh my god, what do I pull from? And then was like, oh, what if I pulled from his son? Something like that.
And there are some like correlations between the two of them, that they have the similarities when it comes down to their whole Zanpakuto as well.
Ooh, say more about that. Because I just don't spend much time thinking about Ishin Zanpakuto or Ichigo's, to be quite frank. It's just never been something that I've thought about too deeply.
I'm trying to remember if this is where this comes into effect, but are you okay? Shiki, do you know much about this?
I honestly don't remember much about the Zanpakuto stuff at all, so maybe some things will re-spark memory. If not, I'll probably forget it by the time it becomes relevant anyways.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So as far as I remember, Ishin's Zanpakuto is called Engetsu.
Yes, that's correct.
So the su at the end, the moon part of it, if I'm nowhere near as good as you two at the whole Japanese side of things, but with the whole Zangetsu and the Engetsu, that's where the correlations start.
The same, by the way, I know this is totally a sidebar, but Kyoka Suegetsu, which is Aizen Zanpakuto, also has that word for moon in there, which I don't really know how that comes into play yet, but I don't know, moon imagery, let's frickin' go.
Yeah. They've got the whole final Getsuga Tensho, they've got the same attack name as well, so there was a lot of similarities with their whole Zanpakuto that passed through the generations.
I completely forgot about that. And then oh boy, because Rukia has a lot of moon imagery associated with her whole entire character as well, doesn't she? And so does Byakuya. And so the fact that a Soul Reaper so closely associated with the moon spurred Ichigo's initial burst into power. I don't know whether that's to do with like they were connected by fate all along, or whether their energies synced up because they're both connected to the moon or something. And I think knowing that Ichigo and Rukia are clearly connected means that in some way Ishin and Rukia must be connected as well.
Yeah. They are in a sense. The whole heart scene with Kaien and Rukia.
Oh god.
Of course, then you know who Kaien is in relation to Ishin and Ichigo, then there's that kind of connection with them there.
You know what's wild is I always remember that Kaien and Ichigo are related, and then I forget that Ishin is a literal Shiba, and that means that obviously I forget. I always this is the most I've paid attention to Ishin ever. Wait, that's exactly it. I forgot that. Yo, Kaien, high key, is the glue that connects all of these people. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Naomi. Oh my gosh.
Kaien just doesn't get enough credit.
Big mood. Yeah, and you know what? The fact that Ishin then decided to set up shop and set up his home in Karakura Town, which is under the jurisdiction of the 13th, as I've mentioned before, like, that's Kaien's squad. So,
yeah.
And Ishin was a captain. He knew that. I bet that wasn't an accident. Aw, family matters. I love that.
Could you also point out that how good of an actor Ishin is as well?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
The amount of times he's like, what happened? I have no idea. Like casual conversations with Con at graveyards and all. His acting style. Keeping a straight face.
It's believable too.
It
you know he's
is.
always there, just constantly aware of what his son is probably doing and just ready to step in should the worst come to fruition, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he'd ever let anything go too far. I think that's a really good point, Shiki.
Yeah, but he's always letting him have his space. That way he has that chance and opportunity to grow because he knows what world his son is getting into, and he knows how horrible and vicious it can be.
He's pulling an ukitake. He is letting Ichigo fight his own fights. There are two types of fights. The fight for pride and the fight for honor. And that's what Ishin's doing.
You said what you said.
I did it. I went there.
Thank you. Bless you, Naomi. Oh. Another thing that I'm wondering about now that the concept of intervention into Ichigo's potentially life-threatening problems has come into play. So this is totally a timeline thing that I could have looked up and didn't. Does Ishin know that Kisuke is there also?
I feel he must be at least aware of it.
I think so too.
I would even imagine they're probably in talks, but I'm not sure.
They could be. Because we don't see Ishin during Turn Back the Pendulum, do we?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
He's not even a lieutenant at that point.
Right.
According to Kubo and Jet, I think it is.
Yes, yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
So he knows of him, but they probably never really met. I'm really big on timelines, so I've got like this. I've got this whole timeline of pinpoint specifically where things are, and it's like the first thing I do when I join a new fandom is just write a timeline. I spend like 5 days on it.
Beautiful. Are you the kind of fic writer that because I guess I'm asking because I know that I'm this kind of fic writer where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to write something, I want it to, unless it's an AU, I want it to be very canon compliant. And so I spend a lot of time making sure that things don't overlap in a way that's canonically impossible.
Yes. Yeah, I am that kind of writer, yeah.
I have so much respect for that. Heck yes.
Got me wanting to look up something though.
Go for it. Can I ask what you're going to look up, or is that a surprise?
No, if I could remember what it was. It's like I opened up the document. What were we just talking about? Yeah.
We were talking about Kisuke and Ishin and whether they knew each other potentially during Turn Back the Pendulum, but also potentially during other times.
Yeah, it was actually not that document I wanted. It was the end of the manga. So the end of chapter 1 of the manga's got that little picture, is like a little white page of just Rukia sitting down. She's got her white yukata on. Ichigo's lying exhausted after winning the fight with the first hollow. And it's just Kisuke's foot. And you can tell it's Kisuke because it's the bottom of his green. I mean, it's shaded
and
in the
manga.
manga.
As well. The Geita are super distinct. Yeah, nice.
Exactly, yeah. But that leads back to the whole chicken samurai gear, and Ishin's going, wait, there's a Soul Reaper in my house. I'm like thinking he's maybe contacted Kisuke, which is why everything got cleaned up so quickly.
That seems incredibly likely. Yes, totally, because Ishin doesn't have those capabilities anymore at this point, does he? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I feel like they have to know about each other, and I would be more surprised than less if they didn't have conversations at least every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of other people you should know, apparently he has some contacts at the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was like throwback to one of our first episodes of this podcast, but that was one of my first double take moments. Ishin calling the Karakura. I don't know whether it's literally the Karakura Town Hospital. I don't know how big Karakura Town is, but it's whatever the closest local hospital is. And that's some Ishida noise right there, for sure. Yeah. I think it's nice that they keep in touch in that way, actually.
I forget, Lethan, when she was giving the manga differences, did she also mention that he said he knew the people at the hospital as well in the manga?
Ooh, I don't know, because I know for sure he mentioned that in the anime, because that I've only been watching the anime over these past several episodes, so...
If you give me a quick hot second, I can look it up for you.
Cool. Ooh, amazing. Yes.
I just got to find the right chapter.
Excellent. Do you have physical copies, or are you scrolling online somewhere?
I have a Shonen Jump subscription.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, great.
So yeah.
Oh, man.
Splurged $2.
No, that's well worth it. I was going to say I've always wanted to get like a whole library of the physical copies of the manga, but I have
almost a full collection of when it had physical Shonen Jump in the US.
That's amazing.
Like the first 5 volumes or something like that.
I've just never been able to justify it because I've moved often enough since finishing school that buying books always feels like such an indulgence. I did buy Jet, though. I fully splurged and bought Jet, and I have no regrets about that. It's heavy, and it's worth it. It's beautiful. Ugh.
I've got physical copies of my favorite arc because I feel like that justifies having...
Ooh.
And plus, before I got the Shonen Jump, I was scrolling online, and my favorite arc is impossible to find online because of the way it's randomly numbered.
Can I ask what your favorite arc is? This is a spoiler episode, so unless it's, I mean, if it's from the final arc, you can say the name of it. I said,
Oh
well,
no, it's
one arc,
actually it's going to be coming up soon. It's Turn Back the Pendulum.
Yes. Oh my gosh, brilliant. Okay. It is numbered super weird. Trying to find that out, because when I was first reading the manga and I was reading it online, because I'd seen the anime first and I was like, I know this is canon content. Where is it? So it took me a minute to try and find it online. And I'm so glad I did, because it's beautiful and it makes me cry every single time. Oh my god, I feel so satisfied, and I feel so much that was actually, Turn Back the Pendulum was the first time I cried watching Bleach.
I've got the right chapter, now I just got to find the right page. Sorry.
Okay, no, my gosh, you're totally good.
I found it. Listen, tell your boss it's a request from Kurosaki. He'll find me some free beds real quick. Do it.
Yep.
So he says
That's
it's
it.
like it's a request from Kurosaki. So the fact that he says his last name would be enough for them to jump in. Yeah,
that's one thing I've noticed re-watching this and hearing Lethen's manga differences is that Kubo definitely planned a lot of the story elements way in advance. This definitely wasn't a just writing and going along as he writes. This seems like it was very much so planned out years in advance story.
And for someone who claims that he is a writer first and a storyteller second, that is really impressive, and mad props to him.
Truly. Which is wild, because I would consider, I mean, yeah, I've said it before, but I think that the world building and the metaphysics are one of the most appealing parts of Bleach to me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, sir, if you consider yourself a storyteller second, my mind is truly blown, because I think the storytelling is actually very strong. It's very easy to shit on Bleach when you're a Bleach fan, but it's like that whole, like, to be a real fan of something, you have to hate it kind of thing. It just means you've spent enough time with it to see the imperfections, and you wouldn't have spent, like, people don't hate things they don't care about. You know what I mean? You have to care about something to feel that strongly. And so, I don't know, man. If you say you hate Bleach, I think you actually secretly love Bleach.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the manga, like when everything was released, trying to find like roughly when we would have gotten into the Arrancar arc. What manga do we first actually see Arrancar actually referenced as Arrancar?
Oh, yikes. That'll be, oh boy, post the introduction of the Vizards, but not too, well, Shinji, not all the Vizards, but not too long after. Because I think the first time we see Arrancar properly it's Ukiura and Yami coming to take Orihime, right? Or am I completely
try around
that?
volume 22. That's the first one where it's got an Arrancar on the cover.
Okay, so yeah, when you look at the first Japanese release for the very beginning of Bleach, it starts in 2002. And if it's volume 22 that we first get the Arrancar, which that's May 2nd of 2006. So 4 years of planning, and we see Arrancar like straight up with Grand Fisher very early in the manga. And it's like, you've been planning this for a very long time, good sir.
Yeah, I suppose he needed to establish some precedent for a person like Ichigo potentially being able to wield both a Zanpakuto and a Hollow Mask. So I wouldn't be surprised if it took him a second to go, okay, great. Oh, this is pure speculation now, but I'm like, what if Kubo knew that he wanted to give Ichigo both Hollow capabilities and Soul Reaper capabilities, and then was like, oh, what are the various ways in which I could do that? And thus the Vizards and the Arrancar were both born? Maybe not, but those are sort of, it's which angle are you approaching this merger from? And those are kind of, it's very basic, but those are kind of the two, what are you starting with and where are you going kind of ways.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any interviews with him talking about that.
Yeah. Here's something to put it into perspective, though. In the very first chapter of the manga, chapter 1, Death in Strawberry, the very second page after Rukia arrives in Karakura town, and it's big splash heading, Ichigo's at the front, and there's like a whole load of characters at the back. Shinji is one of those characters.
No
Really?
way!
Hold up. I
That
gotta
is
look
so
at this now.
exciting!
Apparently, he
Ah.
ranked 103rd in the second popularity poll with 3 votes. So 3 people out there
Fuck
love
yeah.
Shinji just as much as I do.
Oh my
But-
god, cue Dell spamming the chat with 1,000,000 upside down smiley face emojis. Let's freaking go! Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've heard before, and I can't remember what the source for this was, is that Kubo has a distinct interest in character design and even fashion design. And so something that he would do, I've heard, when he was struggling to figure out exactly what to do next, is he would just draw a new character, which is one of the reasons why there are so many characters in Bleach. And so I could see him, sitting there drawing Shinji, and Shinji has a really distinct face, a pretty distinct character design, I would say, a distinct haircut, fashionable gentleman. So I could see Kubo drawing this guy, sticking him in the back and going, great, I have to put him somewhere. What am I going to do with this character? I'm going to keep him around. He's going to be somebody, and I'll figure out who eventually.
Yeah.
Shinji does know how to make a first impression, though. I will say that. Oof.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
And just any kind of impression, really.
Yeah, he's a very versatile dude.
Definitely.
Which actually, so now that we're talking about Shinji a little bit, something that it didn't occur to me to reflect on until a little bit later when I was thinking about the first season of Bleach on the whole. It didn't occur to me as I was watching, but only upon reflection, because it's about something that isn't mentioned. And it could be a product of the fact that Kubo was still figuring out what to do. But so we know that the Vizards have a warehouse in or around Karakura Town, right? And it's pretty wild that there are, so like Kisuke knows they're there, obviously, but someone like Ishin maybe, and even somebody like Uryu who has a knack for detecting high spiritual pressure, nobody has said anything about this potentially rather large concentration of high spiritual pressure individuals. Like, so either like massive shout out to the Vizards for hiding so well for so long, or there's something else going on. But I thought it was just, I was like, Uryu, you haven't clocked this? How? Why? And now I'm absolutely obsessed with the why, and I don't really have an answer yet.
I suppose, well, there's the whole barriers in Hachi.
Oh my gosh, that's a good point. And you know what? Tessai's probably helping, now that I think about
definitely.
it. Hachi and Tessai have tag teamed before.
Yeah.
It's still very impressive. Maybe that's my takeaway. The Vizards are impressive.
Just impressive. I mean, not butting in, not coming in to help before it's time. There's the whole 3 seasons before we actually see them, and so much has happened.
I suppose that's true, but at the same time, if you're one of the Vizards and you've been literally expelled by the society to which you pledged your life in service, even though you did absolutely nothing wrong, are you going to be rushing out to help this, like, little Soul Reaper boy? I don't know, man. I'm thinking, like, the reason, as far as I can tell, that the Vizards came out to help eventually was because Aizen was involved again, and he is the source of so many of their problems. If it's just a random Soul Reaper, I could see, like, Shinji especially, because he's got attitude and he was closest to Aizen of the Vizards. I could see him being like, oh no, fuck that, fuck you, I'm gonna put some headphones on and not care.
Yeah. I wonder if Kisuke would be the type of person to pull in favors as well, though.
Oh, I bet. I'd be shocked if he's not.
Yeah, because it'll be a case of, all right, guys, look, I'm calling in the favor now. There's this kid, I need you to train him. After that, we're quits.
Ooh, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, I'm going to pay attention to that when we get into that later, because I always assumed that Shinji decided to take that initiative because he wanted revenge against Aizen, but Kisuke might have been involved in that way. That's a very good thought.
All right, speaking of that, so I know I mentioned this in either the last episode or one before that, I can't remember, but I don't remember if this is an actual thing in the future of the story. Does Urahara have any real experience with making hollows?
Naomi, do you have thoughts about this?
I'm trying to... don't think he ever got round to actually doing it. Like, Aizen achieved something that he didn't.
Yes.
I think, if I'm remembering it correctly. So So Urahara
Well, there
knows
was
the
something
theory
experimented.
behind it, but Aizen was the one who actually did the practical side of it.
The reason being Urahara is, well, I'm trying to remember now. I think the 12th division received approval to use a few souls or bodies or something like that, whereas Aizen was just going out there being relentless and using as many samples effectively as he wanted, and Kisuke had more scruples or was more law-abiding.
So does that mean then that Kisuke then continued his research when he went to the human realm? Because remember, Jinta apparently intimately knows the process as well. So I presume that he must have kept working at it even after his exile.
I mean, he must have done something in 100 years. It'd be pretty boring if he didn't.
Yeah, I absolutely assume he did. Possibly because he knew that Aizen was still out there, and so the idea that he might need to step in and intervene again could have been in the back of his mind.
It makes you wonder how much that it was actually planned by both Kisuke and Aizen, or how much it was just a case of that happened and I need to come up with something super smart to counteract it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because so that takes me back actually to a bit in one of the later episodes of the first season of the Bleach anime, so I think there are two questions that arose from the series of episodes where Ichigo is training in the basement beneath the Urahara shop. So one is like, I've never been able to shake the theory that Ururu and Jinta were created in some capacity.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know whether they're literal Gigai or like what their specs are, what their stats are, but so I take it for granted that Kisuke has spent more time developing more thorough ways of creating bodies that can house thriving people. And then, as sort of a sidebar, really, I noticed in episode, maybe 18 or 19, when Ichigo is fighting off encroachment and Jinta is the one who goes down and speaks with him quite often. Yes, Kisuke may have sent Jinta down there because maybe he's like closer to Ichigo's age, or maybe he's more relatable, or maybe he just wanted to taunt Ichigo or something. But the possibility, I wonder whether it's difficult for Kisuke to watch people turning into hollows. I can't imagine. I mean, he's a very hardened person, and he's not about to like step away from squeamish things, but if he doesn't have to, like, I can't imagine it was really easy for him to sit there with multiple bodies of people that he had worked alongside with, all of whom are halfway through holification, going, oh my gosh, I need to stop all of this in a matter of almost no time. Otherwise, this sucks for everyone. Oh,
he
man.
was being very calm about it. Like, and it was almost like as if he was implying that even after Ichigo changed, there was still something they could do potentially without killing him, because while Jinta and Ururu were kind of concerned of like, shouldn't we stop this by now? I mean, it seems like there was a means of stopping it at the very least.
Yeah, he had something else up his sleeve.
Yeah,
because he also doesn't seem like the kind of person that would just let Ichigo die and become a hollow like that.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that Kisuke is like a fairly strategic, almost ruthless person. Like Benihime is not a kind Zanpakuto, you know what I mean? And so the idea that Kisuke might be a little bit ruthless himself tracks for me. So either Ichigo fights off holification on his own, and great, hooray, we all celebrate, or Ichigo becomes part hollow, part Shinigami, and Kisuke has another powerful weapon on his hands to fight Aizen with eventually, maybe. It's a win-win for Kisuke, honestly.
Yeah, it just feels like he always had some kind of plan, even if his main plan failed.
Yeah. He's a scientist. I mean, I feel like that's very up his alley.
So I suppose because we're talking about Urahara, we can then also talk about the relationship that he has with the other members that are, we've spoken about, Shinji and them. We've spoken about Uru and Jinta, who totally agree. Definitely some sort of mod saw capabilities there, but we haven't really touched on his relationship with Yoruichi.
Oh my goodness, yes,
yes.
please, yes.
So, we know that there's history with these guys. Definitely familial, best friends, however you want to interpret their relationship. But the fact that she would, gives up everything to then come back, and pretty much she's the only one who exiled herself freely.
She
for
really
these
is,
guys.
isn't she?
Whereas everybody else didn't have a choice. She had that choice, and she chose friendship over honor, which I think is pretty cool. I'm like, love you, Ichi. But
Yeah.
she left a lot behind. Did she actually stay? She probably moved backwards and forwards a lot, to be fair. She was probably the spy. Can just imagine her running around telling Kisuke exactly what Aizen's doing at every step of the journey. That's why Kisuke is always 2 steps ahead.
Another thing that I wonder is that, so Yoruichi is from one of the 4 noble families that exist within the Seireitei, right? So I wonder if she just wanted a break. Like, I wonder if she spent her whole entire life being groomed for this very specific thing. That was not a cat joke, that was just a word. And I wonder if maybe, like, for the first time in her life, she left a lot behind, yes. But she's always had power. She's always had esteem. She's always had responsibilities. So for the first time in her life, she can just fuck around as a cat, hang out with her best friend. I mean, the circumstances obviously were not ideal, but I wonder if she took this as an opportunity to back off just a little bit because she wanted to as well. Maybe.
Probably. I mean, who would? Like, the circumstances of her nobility, if it is that kind of high-powered, high-pressure, she's getting, pulled every which way to, oh, it's time for you to get married now, it's time for you to have kids now, it's time for this, it's time for this, it's time for this. I would turn into a cat and run away. It's...
Yeah. I really can't blame her.
Nah.
And so, plus the added bonus of the fact that, like, she knew that Kisuke and the Vizards to be at that time, I guess, hadn't done anything wrong. So she, with her outside perspective, was able to be like, okay, I know Kisuke, I know he's smart. If we're supposed to come out on top in this situation eventually, we will, and we'll find a way. And the way to do that is not working within Soul Society, because Central 46 is biased and archaic, and a lot of the rules and laws that exist within this place are never going to work in their favor. So she's freaking smart too. So I wouldn't be surprised if she weighed all of the possible pros and cons and went, it is best for me and best for everybody if I slip away to the world of the living for just a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, I suppose because you've, like, the whole Central 46 thing as well, they're classed as a bunch of nobles and sages and elders who have probably never even been a Shinigami in their life.
It's true.
It's that kind of management where they've never.
They're the 1%.
They are.
Oh no!
Which is why the place is so problematic. Like, they've never.
It's so problematic.
Yeah, they've never had to be in the little person's shoes, so they don't get it.
Yeah, and we've seen multiple examples of Shinigami who, like, oh man, like, being a Shinigami is a good way out if you have the means. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, little baby Shuhei, like, running around without shoes, terrified out of his mind in the Rukongai as a child, and then he gets out and he gets to, like, start a newspaper and ride a motorcycle and have probably a salary. Like, that is a dream that a little kid in the Rukongai can actually have, and nobody in Central 46 has that experience, I assume. And Renji, too. Renji's another example. I just think Shuhei's really cute as a kid, so I brought him up.
Yeah, Shuhei is cute. Yeah, it's the Soul Society version of the American dream, I suppose. It would be the kind of, there is something to achieve, there is something to aim for, and they can't see what it is like on the other side of those walls. They just see this Emerald City.
Mhm.
Is the only thing I could think of. And
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Because the yellow brick road is not easy. There are lions and tigers and bears and hollows. Oh my.
well, we've spoken about pretty much everybody, but then there's this one at the end here about, I'm going to butcher his name because I pronounce his name differently, Byakuya. Yeah, it's the fact that Byakuya is trying to kill his strongest living memory of his Sana, who is his wife.
Mm.
And there was something that you said, I think it was you, Dale, or it might have been Lathan, about the Soul Society and they always move forward, or they try to push things under the rug depending on the severity, depending on whether or not they want to approach it or how bad it was.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is one of those things where, you know, Byakuya's had that sort of, he's broken those laws. He was an upstart when he was a kid, but then
Yes,
when
he was.
but then he gained power, he gained that responsibility, he realized he got his clan headship, but then he kind of went sideways a bit and married some chick he found in the Rukon for 5 years, which nobody in his family really kind of approved of. So the fact that he's now then trying to kill his wife's sister because he has this thought that he needs to kind of atone for the wrongs that he did in marrying her, which is a completely messed up way of doing it, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, grief does wild things to people, you know? Like, it's totally convoluted, but, you know, weirdly, for somebody that takes such pride in being stoic and careful, this actually seems to be a decision rooted at its core in an emotional response, Byakuya.
You know, I almost wonder if it's more of like he saw what happened to his wife, probably due to the fact that he broke Soul Society rules and norms. And now he's seeing it as if you break the rules, bad things happen, which is why Rukia must atone for
Very
her
like,
sin.
your actions have consequences kind of thing.
Yes,
Mine, yours, and everybody else's.
Yeah, and he's putting the good of Soul Society as a whole above the needs of his sister. And it's more a very utilitarian mindset.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It reminds me of a moment in, oh boy, I want to say episode maybe 17-ish when he and Renji are just coming to take Rukia back to the Soul Society. And Byakuya makes this comment, which actually turned out to be about Cayenne. And I know I mentioned this in very vague terms on the podcast episode where we discussed episodes 17 and 18, where Byakuya says, I understand why you're willing to do all of this, Rukia. He expresses understanding, and it turned out to be something where Byakuya was like, oh, you're being moved and you're having this response because Ichigo looks like Cayenne. But where I thought he was going, and I was so excited about it until he mentioned that resemblance, I thought he was saying, like, I understand how this came to be. I, too, once made a really stupid sacrifice for somebody that I thought I cared about and I thought it was going to be worth it. And I was wrong. And you, if you come with me, are going to see that you were wrong, too. I've learned, I've lived. I understand that this is a mistake, but you, being so much younger than me and having so much less experience, can't possibly understand yet. But I've been in your shoes before, is where I thought he was going. It's not where he went, but I was like super ready for that moment of growth. Ugh.
I would imagine those kind of underlying feelings were still there, at least
they probably
somewhat.
were, yeah. With all of that, oh my God, having been said, we're gonna, I think, wrap up our core discussion of the spoilers that emerged for us in season 1. And even though this episode is different and special, we are going to keep our Shinigami Cup Peroxide Edition because we just really like it. But the awards are gonna be a little bit different. So we're gonna start off with this was Lethan's idea. She couldn't join us for this recording, but she's still a part of the squad. So this is best forecasted, in which we say, so there are, of course, lots of moments of foreshadowing, because this is early days, season 1. If it's good storytelling, and it is, it's going to have some dope foreshadowing. So is there a moment of foreshadowing that excited you or interested you a lot, that you remember from season 1? Naomi, do you have a thought about that? You want to take it away? I know that's like no pressure, but
this is like the only one I didn't have anything for. I couldn't think of anything.
Oh no, that's okay. We can also do that part over if you like, and then I can ask Shiki first.
No, it's fine. I've got one now. It's probably
Brilliant.
the same as Shiki's though, so I apologize in advance. But it is basically the whole Ishin, Ryuken, and what's gonna come far, far, far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Nice.
That's excited to see that again.
Yes, 100%. Shiki, what about you?
I'm gonna have to choose the Arrancar foreshadowing, with especially in the manga where it's a lot more blatant, but even in the anime we do see the silhouettes of those two Arrancar at the very beginning of that episode. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, it's such good metaphysical building. I'm so stoked about that also. Mine is about a character that we didn't touch on at all. Granted, he's like not in season 1 even, well, he's in season 1 only briefly. Mine has to do with the introduction that we get to Geen, actually. Yeah, because so we first see him. It's incredible the way in which these characters who are presented as like Renji and Byakuya are like big scary villains in this whole season, which is hilarious considering what a frickin' doof Renji is, and what like Byakuya becomes the guy that does bad stand-up comedy. Like that's his whole character, but you wouldn't think that from the way he's introduced. But in the case of Geen, so Byakuya is presented as a villainous character, I would say, when we first meet him in season 1. And so Geen is introduced offering a criticism of something that Byakuya is doing. So he seems kind of sketchy and shady and goofy, and he doesn't open his eyes, and you don't really know what the deal is. But I guess I just wanted to point out that Geen, even though it's veiled, is introduced as someone who opposes villains, even if it's subtle. So I didn't expect to clock that, but as I was thinking back, I was like, he's so mysterious and weird, and then you think you have him figured out, but nope, you never do. So that was my moment. Okay, cool. So next, we're gonna do a thing a little bit different. So this is going to be an opportunity for each of us to share a headcanon, kind of from anywhere, I guess. Like in theory, based in season 1, but it doesn't have to be. So this we're gonna call our flower crane head canon, supplied to us by none other than Kukaku Shiba herself, expert in all canons, head and otherwise. So, Naomi, do you want to take it away again?
Sure. Yeah. So this goes back to, we were talking about the Vizards and where they were during this whole arc. And my headcanon is that they were scattered all across the world. We have, let's see, Love is going to be up in the higher islands of Japan as a gym teacher, because that just strikes me.
That's why he wears a tracksuit.
Exactly. Yep.
Let's go.
Rose is doing the country circuit down in like Tennessee, playing in like smoky bars, that sort of stuff.
Lovely.
Mashiro and Kenzai, I don't understand why I made this my headcanon, but they are in South Africa. I just imagine Kenzai being on a African safari animal reserve.
Oh.
Yep.
I love that. I love, like, he's super serious about it. And, like, if they're both tour guides together, this is me expanding your headcanon. And I'm imagining Mashiro being like, oh my gosh, look over there, the lion's really cute. And Kensei's like, no, that's a very serious lion. Stop it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Lisa is a librarian in England, but she, as a side note, she writes her stories, because we all know what kind of books Lisa likes to read.
Lisa
and-
is E.L. James.
Yep. Yes. Yes, that is Lisa. Hachi, this is probably my favorite. Hachi is a Tibetan Buddhist monk. And people make the journey and go and see him, and he still uses his Kido and his Kaido to heal and to help and to give advice.
I really like that.
Yeah. And then Shinji and Hiyori were just bumbling around traveling. And it's Kisuke then calls them back and says, look, I'm calling in my favor. You need to go find everyone. So then they just go on a trip round and gather everybody up. And they all just meet again at the start of the Arancar arc.
Oh.
Yeah, that was
I love that. If you ever write like a multi-chapter series of vignettes or something like that, I would read the heck out of that.
I'll bear it in mind.
Shiki, do you have a headcanon?
One thing I've always been thinking about is like, so we know Ichigo influenced the powers awakening in Chad and Orihime, but what kind of power would we get out of some of his other friends, namely Mizuhiro? I always imagined that it would play heavily into his promiscuity with older women. Yeah, so I imagine like he would just go around and use that power to like get with the older ladies.
Oh my god, it's a subtler power.
I love it. That's great. And yourself, though?
Oh boy. Gosh, the thing I was gonna share, I'm realizing now, like the first thing that came to mind is something that might even be canon. I think it's kind of just something I want to see more about, because we see Ishin calling Ryukin up to say, hey, Kurosaki's asking for, calling someone at the hospital. Ryukin's not answering that phone. No way. To say, hey, hey, I'm calling in a favor or whatever. I guess, you know what? My headcanon is mostly just about their relationship in general. Like, I think despite the fact that they don't always speak to each other kindly, my headcanon is that they care about each other and that they care about the community that they live in, and they actually want to keep that community safe together. I was like, this is a boring headcanon. And then I was like, nope, it's just fluffy. It's not boring. It's just fluffy. Yeah.
Cute.
That's my headcanon. My headcanon is that they, even if they won't say as much, actually are glad that they can work together, and are glad that they both have each other's backs, and perhaps can like care for people at different income levels and in different neighborhoods and things like that. So I think that's my headcanon. Yeah.
Oh, I like it. That's cute. Yeah.
Thank you. And then our final award, we're going to call Premonitions in the Rain. Shout out to Naomi herself for helping us name this award, because it was a doozy. So this is kind of just like, hey, we've rewatched some of the anime now. So there were a lot of memorable moments that excited us, but which moments are we most looking forward to watching in the upcoming season? Like in theory, this is a question about season 2, which we're covering next on the podcast. But frankly, it can be from any time in the canon of the Bleach anime. So what are you all looking forward to?
Mine, I had mine, and then I realized that it's probably not season 2. It's probably season 3.
Honestly, that's fine. It's all the rescue arc anyway, isn't it? So that goes together.
Yeah. There's an amazing scene between Ukitake, Kuraku, and Yamamoto.
Ooh, get it!
Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing that again. Yep. Just that whole scene. I just love those three and that dynamic they have in that scene. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to talking about that on the podcast. I cannot wait.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my boy gets to fight. But that's for later. Shiki, what are you looking forward to?
You can probably see this one coming, but Kenpachi versus Ichigo.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic fight. It's an iconic freaking fight.
Oh, it is.
Mine is also about Kyoraku, actually. I've gone back and forth watching the Japanese and the English for years prior to this podcast, where I'm just watching the Japanese now. And like, his Seiyu has a voice like like browned butter. It's just so rich and delicious. And I've never watched the scene where Kyoraku meets Chad in Japanese. And I don't know why, but I haven't. And I'm really excited. And I'm excited I'm just excited to hear old favorites with new voices in places that I haven't yet, which is like kind of universal, but in particular, Kyoraku meeting Chad is something I'm stoked about coming up. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd call that a fight, but it's not. It's like a one-shot KO.
Yeah.
They are nowhere near on the same level.
Classic,
Love
yeah.
you, Chad. Love you, Chad. You don't stand a chance. So on our usual episodes, we like to include a section called Delving into the Dongai, where we talk about what is going on in the Bleach verse, and we also like to include fandom shout-outs, where we say, hey, this is something we've consumed often recently, not always, that has excited us, because we at the Seireitei are first and foremost a community, and like fandom is one of the coolest things that exists, and we all love Bleach, and fandom unites us when it comes to Bleach, and that's how we're here. That's why we're friends. That's why we found each other. So we're going to do something special in these spoiler episodes as well. This is going to be a little section in lieu of those shout-outs that we're calling Turn Back the Fangulum, where each of us, who I feel like we all consider ourselves Bleach fans. I think we could safely say that.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a tad bit. Where we're just gonna like share a cool fandom memory, because like those things can be formative and those things can be really emotionally exciting. So yeah, anything from a formative fan work to like a moment at a con to like meeting an internet friend IRL, like it could be absolutely anything. So turn back the fangulum. Naomi, do you have a cool fandom moment?
Yeah, so when I was first reading the final manga arc, I was really getting into Kyoraku and Ukitaki's relationship. And I still am that kind of shipper. I ship them. And so my fandom moment comes from probably one of the first fics I read that explores their relationship, but it also explores the past and the world building as well. So this fic is set before any of the manga. It's set back when they were kids, when they were students. It touches on a bit of Unohana Yamamoto and the creation of the Gotei 13. And this fic is called In All But Blood, and it is labeled as a reboot of Bleach, and it's by Ido Hikaru, and you can find it on AO3, and it is literally a mega fic of 4 different works. Each work has different chapters. Some of it is ongoing. There's like one last chapter of part 4 left, and then there's a new chapter that has popped up since I last read it, but it's just the way it's written and the insight and the history and the world building and the lore that they've created in this fic whilst making it Kyoraku Ukitaki was probably my introduction to finding fanfiction, which then of course led me to the wonderful server that brings us all together anyway. So that is my fandom shout out.
That's stunning. That's beautiful. I'm really looking forward to checking that fic out. Oh
yeah.
Shiki, do you have a shout out, a moment?
So this is a cosplay that I think you will enjoy as well, Del. So let me post that into the chat real quick.
Yeah, nice.
Gosh.
Yeah, so it's a nice Kitake cosplay, and it's just like it's always one that's stuck in my head, and I saved it on my computer a long time ago. So I was just trying to refine it, and thankfully I did find, I believe this is the original cosplayer, but definitely check the description to check him out.
Yeah, he's got the vibe down for sure. And he's got Sogyo no Kotowari and Shikai, which is difficult to find. I don't know who created this particular prop for this cosplayer, but it's difficult to find a Shikai, and so I've looked into making one before as well, and like trying to come up with something that is both structurally sound and allowed at a con is challenging. So this is a really accurate representation, and it's lovely. Oh, nice. It seems like Ukitake is something that binds all of these Turn Back the Fandom shout-outs together.
Yep.
I mean, granted, is anyone shocked that I'm going to be bringing him up in this moment? I hope not. Maybe. IDK. But this is kind of my first experience with fandom and community in a broader sense. So I got, as a couple of you listening probably know, I feel like I've mentioned it before. I got into anime pretty late, and at the time that I'd finished watching the Bleach anime, the final arc of the manga was being serialized and was coming out, and so I picked it up once I finished the anime. And so in like 2016, I think maybe late 2015 or early 2016, a series of Tumblrs started popping up. This is like not so much a thing anymore, but like suggestions from fictional characters kind of became a thing on Tumblr. And there were a couple of Bleach folks that I saw. There was an Ichigo, there was a Rukia, there was a Renji, I want to say. And I was like, oh, well, anyone can do this. Oh, gosh. I can do this. And so I ended up creating one for Ukitake, which like I can't speak to like how successful it was as a suggestions blog. I was proud of the content I put out there, but that wasn't really the point. The point was that there was a big group of us, and we would use the tag Bleach suggestions to make sure that everything was easy to make sure that people could find everything. And I remember having a lot of late nights with these people that I had never met, going like both chatting as ourselves about Bleach and also going back and forth in character. Like this was my first experience with any sort of online role play in this way, so that was exciting. But the main thing that I remember is the manga coming out, the final few chapters of the manga coming out in August of 2016. And all of us being on absolute tenterhooks together, and all of us like crying and consoling each other together. And it was just really fortunate that I had found this group of people a few months before the manga was due to end. And like there were obviously things about the end of the manga that I found really difficult to like. I cried at work on August 4th of 2016 5 or 6 times, and there are people who were a part of this community that know that because I was messaging them from behind the bar I was working at going, yo, I can't pour this glass of wine because I'm crying, help. Aww. And they did. So that was pretty darn nice. And it was the first example I saw of fandom as community, and that's the feeling that I strive for every time I think about fandom, and that's part of the reason that I like this community, and the fact that we have this Discord, and the fact that we have this ongoing chat and these continuous conversations and this mentality of support and kindness, because that's what fandom should be. So shout out to the Bleach Suggestion Squad if any of you is still out there. I know a few of you are still active, and I'm sorry if I haven't been, but thank you for showing me that, because it's a beautiful thing.
And that's just something that I've learned, that we are a family. Everyone is just super nice. And that's what's so great about, I think, especially shout out to the Discord server, because none of us have done that yet. But everyone is just so nice, so friendly. And you should definitely come and check us out. We are crazy as well, but who isn't?
Yeah. Yeah. Here we are all just like fawning over fictional people with incredible swords. Like, we're bound to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that technically brings us to the end of our first ever spoiler episode. Round of applause for ourselves, because we freaking did it. So that was pretty neat. Yay. Yeah, my microphone is so tiny you're not going to be able to hear my hands. It's probably the best. So yeah, I want to put it out to all the listeners that like this is the first time we've done an episode like this with this like fairly free-form format. So if there's anything that you especially liked, anything that you think we could improve upon, please let us know. Please give us a shout on Twitter, Instagram. I'll do the whole spiel and you'll be able to know exactly where to go before too long. But we really would, in this case, even more than usual, we really would appreciate feedback. So if you have thoughts and opinions, you can also, of course, join the Discord server. Let us know there. Yeah, that would be fabulous. So before I jump into the shtick, does anybody have anything else to say?
Nope.
Nope, I'm all good.
Great. Other than just like thank you so much, Naomi, for joining us. It has been so nice having you, and I'm stoked that like you're going to be on a few episodes, many episodes in the future, and that's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much. It's going to be great.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, yes, the community grows all the time, and it's such a good thing. Yay. Wow. Okay. Well, all of you wonderful souls, as you know, that is indeed the end of another episode, the end of our first ever spoiler episode. So, if you like what you heard and you want to get involved, you can find us a bunch of places. You can find us by searching for TheSeireitei on Tumblr and Instagram, and TSeireitei on Twitter. Each of these platforms will link you to our fantastically deadly Discord family, where you can chat with us about the show, read fanfiction, take part in creative challenges, and talk anything and everything Bleach. Now, Ichigo and Rukia might reap souls, but we here are hoping to reap some 5-star reviews, and that's where you come in. Make like our favorite orange-haired protector, and Ichi go to iTunes to rate us, review us, and make us feel like #1. To those of you listening on YouTube, don't forget to be like Chad and give us that good thumbs up, because we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much once again, everyone, for tuning into this extra special spoiler episode. Next time, we're swinging the pendulum forward again, and we'll be continuing our watch through of the Bleach anime, picking up with the second season, episode 21, Enter the World of the Shinigami, and episode 22, The Man Who Hates Shinigami. We'll see you souls then. Till next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.